All right, thank you very much. Just by way of introduction, I'm Derek Hansen. I'm a faculty member at Brigham Young University's IT and Cybersecurity program, and I'll be presenting with Justin Giboney, who's going to take over here and start us off.
Awesome. Thank you. So Cybermatics is the idea of giving students an opportunity to practice cybersecurity skills, hopefully in a fun or engaging way. And so the big question we have, and Derek guided most of this before I started working with him, is how do we engage students? Is specifically in cybersecurity, but there are different techniques. For example, flipped classrooms, having some real world work, gamification, simulations, and so on. And so we focus kind of on this last one, this kind of alternate reality games, which is the idea of embedding students into the real world in a simulated way. It's kind of interesting, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit more. So at the same time, we are both educators, and so we are looking for ways to design instructional experiences in these games so that students are learning specific things along the way, learning lessons and learning skills to better their careers and futures. And we base this a little bit off of some learning theory that's out there, with the idea that that there's some baseline knowledge that you can receive, and with that we can watch what students do through ethnography and things like that. Develop some technology that can better the learning of the students. And
one key concept here is that the more connections that people make between what they're learning, the better. And if they can connect it to their life, or if they can connect it to a real world simulation and practice it, they're going to remember it better.
Yeah, and so we're trying to tie all of these things together. So we're trying to tie the outcomes, the students themselves, the technology, the learning environment, all of these things are trying to tie together for the students. And we've encapsulated this in what we call playable case study, with the idea that a player assumes a role inside of a company or organization or something like that, and they get to see what it's like in a day in the life of a person inside that company. With one of the main philosophies being that this is not a game. So we don't want the students coming in and just playing a game. We don't want them to necessarily think about it as a game like Tetris or something like that. We want them to think of it as a real world experience. And this hopefully aligns with the learning goals of whatever educational system they have. So our objective for the solution is for students to be able to understand cybersecurity jobs. In this case, they are penetration testing personnel. And so we want them to be able to learn what it's like for penetration testers. So they're going to learn about this job. They're going to develop the skills, knowledge, and abilities that are tied to that job. They're going to engage in learning, active learning strategies, and help them identify as a cybersecurity professional. And this hopefully it helps increase awareness and self-efficacy in this area. Go ahead.
And it might be worth mentioning that this is really for students that don't have any prior knowledge of cybersecurity or very limited. So we teach this in our IT&C 101 class, so they can sort of understand, oh, what is it like a day in the life of a pen tester? So we're not going to turn them into an expert pen tester, but hopefully give them the context in which cybersecurity activities occur.
Yep. Okay, so in the playable case study, there are a variety of different experiences that we give, various technology that we give to the students to play with. And Derek, when he gives the demo, is going to show off some of these things that are going on here. Okay, so just as a brief introduction of the overall picture of what's going to occur during the Cybermatics experience, we have kind of split it up into days. And we've found that if we split it up into days, it gives the students kind of concrete learning outcomes for a simulated day in this company, and it helps teachers be able to progress the story and make sure that everyone's on the same in the same stage of it. So on day one, they're introduced to their team. They're introduced to the site that they have to pen test with various goals about learning about penetration testing and things like that. On day two, they're visiting the RipTech IO site that they're going to do the penetration testing on, and they learn about scope and SQL injection and obtaining usernames and hashes and things like that. On day three, they're looking for evidence of a bad actor inside of the company. Then they're given some clues about this coworker that's not doing a great job. And then they use these passwords that they've collected using SQL injection to get into the company. They learn about cracking passwords and hashes and learning about the shell environment, which is a big thing for a lot of new students. Day four, they get to explore the target company server using remote access. They get to find a back door about this bad actor that they learned about earlier. They report it to the CEO, who contacts the FBI. So they're learning about SSH, Linux skills, finding evidence on servers and things like that. And then day five kind of wraps up with ending the simulation, tying it all together. We show a video of the FBI arresting a bad actor, which is kind of fun for the students, right? And then they write up a report. And so they learn about writing reports and everything like that. So, okay, so Derek is now I'm gonna stop sharing, and Derek is going to show off Cybermatics to you.
All right, so here's a quick demo. Once you've logged in, it's as if you're on like the Cybermatics intranet, and Cybermatics would be the company that's like a pen testing company that you're starting out working with. And these are the people that you're working with. These are actors, fictional characters that we have little bios for. And over here, you'll see the days which we present here, and then there's a number of tasks that you would complete for each day. And then once you've completed them all, you advance to the next day. As you advance to new days, the new information is released that you can access. So for example, we'll go through show off some of the features. So there's a document section that shows information about how like tips and information that will help you as you go through, because again, these students don't really know what some of these concepts are. So I'm going to show you an example of one of these. If we go to SQL injection on day 2, that's part of the activity that you engage in. And then here you can see that it looks like kind of typical code documentation. It's probably more, it's written for an audience that doesn't know a lot about SQL. And so it helps present that information. We also have a terminal. This is an emulator in JavaScript, but it works like a regular terminal, and some of the activities are in here. Then we have a chat system, and we actually have this tied in with Google's chatbot system, where you can post messages and get replies in real time. So these would be messages from some of the people you're working with. It's kind of a Slack-like interface. So right now we're talking to the whole group. You could also talk to some individuals. And if I type something in, and I'll just put hello for now, you can see it shows this like it's as if they're typing here. And that's kind of to enhance this sense of, sense of realism, which we call, TINAG, or this is not a game ethos. We don't have, it's not as good as Siri. You can't type anything you want in there, but we do sort of prompt you to enter certain information in here on certain days, and then it will give you feedback based on that. And then there's an email system where you receive different email messages, and so you can go through here. For example, when you start this experience, there's an entrance survey, which we have you take, which actually is like a Qualtrics survey. And we have embedded some research activities here. So we ask them about their prior experience with and knowledge about penetration testing and cybersecurity and other information about their career aspirations. But we do it all in game, meaning that it's all kind of as if it was a person from HR, you know, Jennifer, that's sending this, and they're collecting this data for the company just to make it feel real. And you can write email messages. In fact, each day we have you write a summary to Kimberly, who's your supervisor. We have you write like a summary of what you accomplished that day. And this is from some learning theory that suggests that having you summarize in your own words what you've done is an important you know, part of learning and reflection, metacognition. So that's kind of the interface. And then just to show you some other things we've done. So for example, on day 2, you perform a penetration test on this fictional website that we have for this Internet of Things company. So this is all just, you know, a fake kind of static site. And if you go to the login part here, then you can type in some information. And I'll just show you this. We have materials as well for teachers. So this is like the lesson plan, and it goes through, you know, what the students are learning. And then it has some examples here of how things work, some discussion questions that you could ask the students during class about the simulation, a few, you know, simple quiz questions. And then we also put in here like the answer key. So if, you know, an instructor, just to make sure that they have that handy. So I'm going to copy one of these over and just kind of show you if we were, you know, to plug this in here. It's not actually performing SQL injection, but it's kind of simulating it in a slightly simplified way. You could put any, you know, information you want in this first part, and then it like, basically it's, you know, using this OR statement to bypass, in this case, it would be like PHP, and then running a query. And when we do this, we get some information that looks like output from, you know, a database. Now this, again, this is all fictional data. There's actually not a database behind it. But these then are used in the next clue. So the students really feel like, you know, they're accomplishing and like hunting down this series of clues as they work through this. So for example, the next day, they'll use these hashes of passwords, and they'll use this little hash crack tool that we have built into our terminal. And then that will allow them to, you know, kind of get at some of the easy passwords that people had used. And then they use that to SSH in, and, you know, in the process that Justin explained earlier.
There's a question, Derek, about lectures or video sessions on this. I don't think we have any of those, right?
Oh yeah, so
Do we have slides?
We embed video into the chat system.
No, I'm
So
sorry.
we have,
I think this is for teachers.
oh yeah, we don't have, let me just pull it back up and I'll show you that like teacher panel here.
The site itself is largely designed to actually teach students along the way, so that they're learning as they go through this experience, as opposed to necessarily learning a bunch beforehand and then testing them on it when they get there, right?
Exactly. So here, if you go to instructor resources, I'm logged in as an instructor. Then we have, you know, these kind of lesson plans. By the way, we've run this in colleges for a long time. We also, we also ran it in high school, but I don't think we've actually uploaded like kind of high school. It's obviously a different audience, so you have to scaffold a little more if you run it in high school. But yeah, and this is a, you know, kind of research project, but we've been running it long enough that it seems to be working well. You can also see like what the teachers can create classes and then view those classes. And I'm not going to do that now just for privacy reasons, but you would see a list of your students and some of the, you know, things that they have accomplished. So like what, you know, assignments have they completed? So that would be like those email messages and things. So you can view them in here, or and that lets you create grades. And I will say for grading, this is a kind of assignment where, we're trying to give them an experience more than test their knowledge of a specific thing. And they'll have to perform in order to progress through it. But for grading, usually what I'll do is look at those daily summaries. And, the first few, it's kind of a check. The last day, what we have you do is write up a pen testing report that essentially explains what, you've been able to do throughout the whole thing. And so that's a good summative evaluation to use at the end if you want to assign grades based off that.
Awesome. Okay, let me share my screen again. There's another question that I haven't answered yet, and I'll get to that here in a minute about accessing and things like that. So, okay, so here's some of the things that we've learned along the way. Like Derek said, we've been doing this for a while now. So on the idea of that this is not a game, here's some of the quotes from students. I enjoyed how it allowed you to actually hack and figure things out, and how realistic the people felt, right? So we got some professional actors, and they came out and acted for us, and so we try to create this immersive environment, which is good. This is what we're trying to accomplish. I didn't expect it to feel realistic, and it really did. Everything felt well polished and real, which is good. But there's also some things that we learned about documentation. We put a lot of documentation up there, but students don't like to read it, and it's like, why am I reading this documentation? So we really have to try to figure out ways of incorporating their learning throughout the game in such a way that it feels still real, and that they know where to go to access things, right? So, and making sure that they have enough knowledge at every step on the way. Classroom integration. We found, and this is one of the reasons, like I was saying, that we have these tasks every day. Students really like to know, okay, I finished that task, even though that's not like completely real world. They like to have this idea of that, okay, I know that I finished that task. I'm done at this step, so that they kind of get that ladder feeling or a staircase feeling of being able to keep progressing and know when they've reached each step, right? They express, some students get so much into this that they express frustration that it is a simulation and they can't do more. This happens sometimes with some of the students that actually know more than we necessarily have built this for, and so they're trying all these random things to see.
Yeah, so an example would be like our SQL injection is sort of, not, it's a simulated SQL injection, and there are some things that you could do if it were a real vulnerable site to that they can't do on this, because only the ones that we've sort of hard coded in work. So they push the boundaries of that.
So there's another question about advanced courses. I'll get to that here in a second. I'm trying to watch all of your chats.
Yeah,
and things like that.
We don't cover NetCAD or Nmap. It's really, again, designed mostly to give them the context in which penetration testing happens, and a few little, relatively simplified, exposure to ideas like SQL injection and whatnot.
Yeah, and we're working on other courses, yeah. And we'll show you. I'll show you that in a minute. And again, I'm gonna be talking about access here in a minute for those of you that are asking. A backend, I mean, it's Laravel and Vue and stuff, if you're interested. Here's another quote. I couldn't really go beyond the immediate scope of the task. And so we're trying to balance this like need for clear answers, so students feel like they've got the right answer and that they've learned something and progressed, versus trying to be flexible and make it real world feeling.
An example of that, when we first started building these playable case studies, we didn't really have as clear of tasks. So it was like you would get an email and it would talk about what you should do, but students, we sort of needed that clarity of check each of the boxes, do each of the things, and then you can advance to the next day. So that was like, a little bit more of the clear answer part, but we still want it to be an environment where it feels real enough that you can explore it, and it's not like a straightforward linear experience. You can sort of do things in somewhat different orders during a single day.
Okay. Okay, so as far as a new PCSs, we have an NSF grant working on actually a couple more. One's more cybersecurity related, and one's more social media analytics type thing.
Disaster response.
Disaster response, yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
So the cybersecurity one, we're actually working on one where they are, it's actually a team-based one. So this is a little new for us to do a team-based one, but we've got a team of 4, and one of them is going to be a network engineer, one of them is going to be your SOC operator, and another one's going to be a SCADA engineer, and then we have a communications / manager type, city management type role. And all 4 of them are going to have to work together to come up with a solution to various hacks that are currently happening. So this is more of a defend the city type scenario as opposed to a penetration test. And they're going to learn kind of what the different roles are in a cyber attack. They're going to learn about cyber kill chain and the OODA loop and things like that in this one. And we're building this one. We don't really have this one to show off for you at the moment. Maybe next year, we'll see. But and then we're really just getting started on the disaster recovery one. We haven't really gotten into that one a lot. So we have students working on building both of these and to help students learn other skills besides SQL injection, right? So,
and I should mention that's a joint project with the University of Maryland.
Yes. Yep. Okay. Interest. So for those of you that are asking, hey, can I get access to this? Yeah, please contact us. We do have a cost solution in for classes. I don't know, Derek runs more of the management side, so maybe you want to speak to that, more of the business side. So
yeah, I mean, so far we've mostly been running these as research projects. So we've been collecting research data and using that, and we've run it at BYU in Maryland. I think we may be able to work out a deal where we do that in a similar way. So send us an email. We'll figure something out that won't be that'll let you guys be able to use it. We'd love to have some other people using it and just helping us to improve it, share their, so if you're willing to kind of share your experience and stuff, then initially I think we can just let you have access to it. And then over time we may, we do want this to be a sustainable project. So over time we're are interested in, collecting some reasonable amount just so that we can maintain it.
To pay for our developers.
Exactly.
Well, mostly student built. Most of this has been student built, so which is great. Just real quick, if you want to look into some of the work that we've done any further, we've published some about this. We've had master's theses on this and things like that. So here's an example. This is looked like this was recorded, so hopefully we'll see this later, or we'll share the slides or something like that, so you can look these up. But so
we should definitely take other questions if you have any.
Yeah, any other questions?
I can mention that we've done this for some non-cybersecurity things as well. So the first one we created was for technical writing. And so a couple of these, link to that concept. And we have other features. So when we design one of these, we often go to experts and say, how do you communicate in this context? And what are the ways you share information? And then we center it around it. So in cybersecurity, having a chat interface made a lot of sense. In our technical writing one, we did like a video web conferencing type system where you actually interview some of the fictional characters just with sort of pre-filmed videos, but you can choose what questions to ask them from a question bank. And then it looks as if you're talking over Zoom or something like that when you're interacting with them. And we would love, if there's other people out there that are involved in designing and building these kinds of things, we'd love to chat about collaborating in the future as well.
I'm not seeing any new questions, so. I heard we had the whole time today, so we have lots of time for questions.
Yeah, there is this question about, do you have a plan to support more advanced courses? I mean, the trick is these take a lot of resources to build. And there are a number of tools already, that let you use the real tools as you experience them. So, in our upper level classes, we often will be using, actual VMs with the real software and stuff. And creating something like this can be challenging in that way. So, I mean, the sweet spot we've found for right now is the more introductory level. One thing that I like about that is that we have, if you think about the curriculum for a lot of cybersecurity or IT programs, you often find that there's a lot of abstract concepts at the beginning, and you get to the really interesting, actually get to do stuff later in the year, in your, degree. And what this does is it kind of teases what they'll actually be doing without having them, like they aren't required to know all of the prerequisite stuff, since we just pick a few areas and kind of teach them just enough to make it work. And yeah, cybermatics.byu.edu. And you have to get a teacher. If you want to do a teacher's account, then you'll have to contact us and we can give you like a teacher code license to get at it. And then we definitely want to keep track of who's using it. And so yeah, just reach out to us. Yeah.
Yes, we have one comment about, is it Bilge, hopefully, they created a virtual lab environment with real tools. So we'd love to hear about collaboration opportunities. Feel free to email us and let us know how we can collaborate in the future.
Yeah. There was one other question that asked about, like, do they just jump right in? I'll mention that it is important to kind of set expectations for what this is and isn't when you start, and also kind of check in with them regularly. We've run this in a couple different ways. So in our 101 class, when we had it in person last year, or earlier this year, then we ran it in a lab. So we had 30 students in the computer lab, and they were all kind of going through it on their own. And we had TAs there that occasionally would go around and, help someone who got stuck, who was raising their hands. We've also had a lot of students just do it individually. And in fact, even in that class, we said, hey, you guys can just do this on your own if you want, but it will be, you're going to have to read the documentation carefully. And, and some of our more advanced students can totally make it through without much help. But some of the ones that are newer to all of this, need a little bit more guidance, and they might need help from a TA or instructor. Or one way to run it would be just, let's say you assign a couple of the virtual days. So you say, okay, do days 1 and 2 before class on Tuesday. And then in class on Tuesday, then you talk about, okay, what have you guys learned? And we've got those discussion questions that help kind of generalize from this. But then also you can say, okay, who got stuck? And can someone come and, in front of the class and explain, say, write up the SQL injection statement that will get them the last step of the way. But it is designed to sort of, if you look at the SQL injection assignment, we have them do really easy ones at first. They can copy and paste one from the documentation and it works. But then the later ones, they have to sort of combine information from a couple different parts of that documentation to be able to solve it. So you can, and we've had people running this. I mean, we're running it this year all online. We haven't done this assignment yet, but we will soon. And we'll probably just have one of the TAs have office hours on Zoom. So if people do get too stuck, they can ask.
Okay, we have a few questions. Is this something we can share with other universities to use in their cyber courses? Yeah, so we talked about that. I think we usually have students purchase a license for I can't remember what the cost is. It's not much. So email us and see how we can collaborate. John asked that one. Meredith
Yes.
asked if we planned to include any cloud security into either the new versions that we're doing. We don't have cloud per se. We do have a cool simulation that Derek has worked on with some students where they actually see a network map across the city that's connecting various devices across the city. It's not necessarily cloud, um, but we haven't done that one specifically, like
And one of
using
the
Azure
challenges
Cloud.
with these is you develop it and you want to make something that will last for at least a few years because there's so much work to be done. So and cloud stuff changes so fast that that might be a hard one to keep maintaining.
Yeah. Is this for an entire term or for a few class periods? We usually run it about a week, right?
Yeah.
In high schools, do we run it for a week or 2 weeks?
No, it was at least, yeah, it was 2 weeks in
It
a
was
high
2 weeks
school.
in the high school. Yeah.
And I should say, like, we run it for a week, but we've already covered SQL,
That's true.
beforehand, and we've already covered Linux basics beforehand. And those two, they sort of leverage in this. So you would want to look at, where to slot it in your curriculum. And it might depend on the students. I mean, every university has sort of different students they're working with.
Yeah. Okay. Mark asks if this is delivered on an image or if it's web-based. It is all web-based. So we host it. We collect all the data and share it with you through the teacher portal. So yeah, otherwise anytime we needed to fix bugs or update it, it'd be really hard to get that to you. So web-based is just so much more convenient for
Yeah.
developing.
I just typed
So,
my email in because we had it on a
perfect.
slide. Justin, you could
Oh
type
yeah.
your, but either one is fine.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you for the great
Yeah, thank you.
comments.
We would love to collaborate and hear feedback in the future. So thank you.
All right. Well, if there's no more questions, then that'll be it for the day. Thank you guys very, very much. It was a very informative presentation. This will be, as you saw, was recorded, and it'll be posted on the CAE community site, usually in about 3 to 4 days. So look for it there. Thank you guys very much.
All right. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.